Yeah, good afternoon, Olivia.
How's it going?
It's going pretty well. How
Yeah,
about you?
good, thank you. Not too bad. Just enjoying some rest after Christmas.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's great. So quickly, without wasting your time,
Mhm.
let us start with you telling us about yourself and your record journey.
Sure.
First of all, please, I want you to help us. Sorry, I want you to help us pronounce your name.
Yeah, fair enough. This it's not an easy name to pronounce. So
Yeah.
my full name is Olivia PETRYSZAK. If you say it in Polish, then PETRYSZAK. But I am half Polish, half English, but I grew up in England, so I am quite English. But now I live in Poland. But I split my time between England and Poland because I work in both places. So I'm
Oh,
traveling all the time.
great,
So
great,
yeah,
great.
so a bit about me in general. So I'm a recorder player. Obviously, I grew up in England and I spent most of my life living in England and working in England. And now I moved to Poland, and I moved to Poland because I was studying there. I did my master's degree in Krakow in Poland, and then I kind of stayed there. And in terms of me as a recorder player on the whole, I am doing a lot of early music, so a lot of very old music, which is kind of normal repertoire for the recorder. But I am also doing
Yeah.
a lot of new music and a lot of improvising and a lot of music that's kind of taken influences from other places. And this is now quite a big part of what I do in my career in general. And yeah, and I just recorded my first album in November, which will be coming out in 2025, and enjoying
Oh, wow, that's great.
lots of yeah, it's exciting, lots of new collaborations with amazing musicians. So lots of exciting stuff planned for 2025. But yeah, that's a bit about me.
We're looking out for it. We're looking out for
Yeah.
it. All right, so that's really great. Thank you. Thank you for telling us about yourself. And yes, everybody, we all know Olivia is a recorder player, professional recorder player, not just a recorder player, but a professional recorder player. So, as a professional recorder player, I want to ask you, can you tell us about recorder music in the past and recorder music now? That's recorder music in the old world and recorder music in the new world. So let's see what you have to say about that.
Sure. I mean, obviously the recorder, kind of the music that was actually written for the recorder when it was kind of first existing. I mean, the recorders existed for many hundreds of years, but we as recorder
Yeah.
players play a lot of repertoire from the medieval era or the Renaissance era and a lot from the Baroque era. But what that means is that we have many different types of recorders. So we don't know. So this is like your standard Baroque recorder, which is what everybody plays in school, and
Yeah.
it's kind of the most known looking recorder. But we also have some instruments that look a bit different, and those are often instruments that were intended for Renaissance music and medieval music. So they require a slightly different way of playing, sometimes a little bit different fingerings or different ways of blowing. And this is something that's very normal for recorder players to be able to do, to be able to kind of play in these different ways. So yeah, so
Yeah.
in terms of playing that music, it can be in many different capacities because there can be stuff written for solo instrument or recorder ensembles. So often in Renaissance music, it's written for a consort of instruments, which means that you have maybe 3 or 4 or 5 or more recorders playing in a group together. And then we have all the Baroque
Yeah.
stuff, which is often very soloistic, and we have lots of sonatas and concerti and Vivaldi concerti and all this stuff. So there's a really broad range of early music that recorder players can play, which is really cool. But we also have a lot of
Mhm.
new music because the recorder came back into kind of being popular in the 20th century, and thanks to the people who were there then, the people who were kind of
Yeah.
pioneering it early on, they also got a lot of composers to write us a lot of music, which means that we have a lot of contemporary classical music for recorder, which is also really nice. So there's loads of music. You know, Berio was writing for the recorder. So many people were writing music, and that's really nice. And then now I would say in kind of more recent times, we see recorder players kind of breaking away from any norm, and this is a little bit more what I'm trying to do. But for example, there are also other recorder players in the world who are doing jazz, or who are doing really going into the folk thing.
Yeah.
And it's not so much for me to decide on one genre. Like, I don't want to be a jazz recorder player, I don't want to be a folk recorder player, but it's really nice to see that people are starting to break away, because it means that we have the recorder is appearing in all these situations where maybe it was not like originally intended to be there, but it's really, really nice that it is now appearing there, and we can see it proving itself in lots of other areas. So yeah.
So yeah, talking about recorder in the past, you know, if you study recorder history, you know that recorder was in the medieval period, then the Renaissance period, and the Baroque period before it started fading out. So the Baroque period will look like a new era compared to the Renaissance period, which in itself was also a new era compared to the medieval period. So what do you think was the transition for the recorder? What was the transition like during this period, and how do you think it can affect the modern time? Because the recorder moving from the medieval period, where it was mainly playing vocal music, or music that were written for vocal voice and other instruments, then it went into the Renaissance period, more like the same, but we started having more of you know, ensembles, the Renaissance ensemble. Then before you talked about the Baroque period, where it became soloistic. So how did you think the recorder and recorder players were able to maneuver these periods, and how do you think it can be applied in the new era we are in now?
Sure. So I think, I mean, the recorder followed many of the kind of patterns that were always happening at that time. So in Renaissance music, as you say, for example, it was really vocal music, and it was very normal for recorders to play together in a thing, and they were playing vocal music, and they had this very kind of calm way of playing, and this was the kind of main thing. And then it was when we were going into the Baroque when other ideas started to come up. So it was the first time when we saw, you know, solo sonatas, and that's not only for recorder but also for violin, for many other melody instruments who were having sonatas, and they had to come out a bit and find a way to kind of have a voice and be more virtuosic. And also with the recorder really had symbols that it represented. So this is something else which is very key to the recorder in the Baroque era. So for example, the recorder represents birds sometimes, or it can be used as a love instrument, or something with nature. And I think what's really nice about the recorder is it's very adaptable to kind of to do all of these things and to represent all these things. And it also, you know, recorder players were required to kind of find these colors and not only be really virtuosic concerto playing instruments, but also to have these, you know, birdie sounds and everything. And I think for me, a really key thing, which is very especially prominent in the Baroque, is that recorders, as with other instruments, really needed to be good at improvising. So improvising ornaments, for example, they needed to be really capable with. And that is something which I think is an incredibly beneficial skill to keep now. So, you know, recorder players now, not only in Baroque music, need to improvise their ornaments or all that kind of thing, but also that can be very easily transferred to new music as well. And I also kind of believe it to be a reason why recorder players can be very versatile and interesting, because they have all this capability of improvising already from early music, and then they can take it and do something new with it.
Okay, so you're saying that recorder players, because there was something you wrote in your article, sorry, talking about recorder players having the ability to always go outside what is written for them, maybe like playing outside the recorder music, like trying to play other music, like music for the violin or music for the flute, or even music for trumpets, you know. So record players always have this characteristics of going outside their should I call it their comfort zone? You get. So are you saying that record players then, I mean, record players now are taking the ornaments of the old times and like improvising it into new music, or they are doing old music in a new way? What do you say about using old techniques in the new time and actually taking old songs and doing it in a new way? Because something like that was in your article as well.
Sure. Yeah. So it's definitely, there's kind of two aspects to it, and one of them is that yes, recorder players in general are just very good at being adaptable because they need to be. So because we don't have such a big range, for example, so if we take music from violins or whatever, violins have a range of I don't even know, like 3 octaves or something, and we maybe have exactly, and we maybe have just over 2. And it means that quite often music written for the violin, for example, can go too low or too high. And it means that we are very quick at jumping octaves or transposing and doing all that kind of thing. So those skills are definitely something which are quite unique to recorder players, and something that I think is really beneficial to become better musicians in general. And then on the other side of it, also in terms of ornamentation, I think it's worth mentioning that, for example, Baroque music takes a lot of influence from folk music, for example. And it means that actually ornaments that might be kind of Baroque ornaments traditionally actually can also be very folky in style. And for me, that's a really transferable kind of ornamentation. So now if I'm not playing on like Baroque music, I will still use ornamentation that might be typical to the Baroque. And often nobody's even noticing that that's Baroque ornamentation because it sounds quite nice with other stuff as well. So I definitely take instinct, I guess, from playing Baroque music especially, and Renaissance music as well, you know, to play any kind of music.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. So there's another aspect I really want you to talk about, because when you told us the other time about your education, your recorder education, you told us you studied at different places and in different locations, different environments. So what would you say about recorder study in today's world? What are your advices? What are the limitations you have come across, and how do you think we can overcome them?
Sure. So there's like so many thoughts about this, so I don't know how to put it into one thing, but my main advice for anyone who is studying recorder or who wants to study recorder is to go somewhere where the teacher suits you. What I would say is that in every single department, there are very different standards, levels of playing, very different types of students, but you're always going to have lots of really different kinds of people, and you don't need to base your study on who you're studying with. I think if you want to make your own opportunities, wherever you study, you will make those opportunities. What's more important is that you choose a teacher who kind of matches with your feelings about music making. So for me, that was having a teacher who was happy to improvise and to be creative, and was not very historical in the way that we should approach all Baroque music, but mostly creative, which was really helpful for me. I think studying in different countries is really different. I think, for example, I can only speak about England and Europe because this is the places I was studying, but England England was a lot about playing, like just playing all the time. You know, we did lots of operas and we did lots of projects and classes, and everything we did was play. And I think that made me much better as a player because I just played all the time. And even if I didn't practice that much, I learned a lot from playing with other people, which is hugely helpful. And then in Europe, the other side of it was that they were much more focused in playing on technique. So when I was in Europe studying, this was when I did much more in terms of scales and arpeggios and transposing and really refining specific techniques, which was also really beneficial. But I think my main feeling about studying is that I feel like the best thing you can do when you're studying is to play a lot and to play with lots of different people, because the best way to learn is to play with other people and to hear their ideas, and to also put yourself sometimes in uncomfortable situations, sometimes when the music is too hard for you or you're nervous to play in that situation. Those are all really beneficial situations to make you a better player. Yeah. And to help you not only as a recorder player, but also as a general musician and also as a person, because being a nice person, for example, is a really big part of getting work as a musician and being successful. So learning how to work with different people, it's all of these many aspects which make up studying. But I think my best advice, and as a performer, my best advice is don't go to your study and spend all your time reading books and practicing in a room. because that's only going to do so much.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the most important thing is to put, because the whole point of studying music is that you meet people and you make connections with the people who you want to make music with later. So you have to put yourself out there, and you really need to ask questions and be open and be curious and try to learn. And I think wherever you study, you can make it happen. You just need to meet the right people where you're studying. So yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. There's one other aspect I want you to address when it comes to study as well. So I was reading your article today again, and there was something that really struck me when you talked about recorder in like secondary schools. You understand, like basic school, and you made mention of, I think it was one of your interviewees who said that the teachers themselves have to teach the recorder in a way that doesn't scare the children away, you know, not imposing yourself on the student. You think you made mention of that in talking about studying in the higher institutions now. But what is your advice to teachers who teach the instrument, or rather not even just to teachers, to schools in general who take recorder up? Because I think many schools are using the recorder for elementary studies. So what is your advice to them? Because I'm sure to have to see this video. So what do you have to say to them?
Yeah, okay, it's fine. I think the connection went a bit funny, but I think I understand what we're going to talk about, which is how teachers in secondary schools can better approach teaching, right?
Yes. And the schools themselves, your advice to the schools.
Yeah, so well, my advice for schools in themselves is that it's so important to have teachers who want to teach music, because I heard, at least in the UK, it's true that so often the government doesn't want to pay money to get you know, music teachers in, so they just get anybody to come in who has spare time, because they think that music is easy and it doesn't need to be someone who actually knows about music to teach it. This is the worst thing, because then they're bored already when they're teaching, and then of course the children are going to be bored too. So I think having teachers who like it, if a school, because I understand that a school can't always have a recorder teacher, because there's not, you know, so many great recorder players that they can have in every school a recorder teacher. The most important thing is that they have a teacher who will not go in and say bad things about the recorder, because it's the case so often with, for example, children's parents, that they don't believe that the recorder is a real instrument, and so they are feeding this into their children that they should move to a different instrument, whatever. But if they have the parents saying this and also the music teacher, then it's never going to happen. Like, nobody's going to want to play the recorder. So having music teachers and recorder teachers in schools who are giving good information to the children, because children, I mean, they learn by listening, and they learn by kind of copying. So if they see that a teacher is also excited by the music they play, of course they're going to be more excited, and that's the most important thing. Yeah, I mean, I really think that's most of it. You know, it's not even about, it's at that stage in life, it doesn't have to be about, I mean, if you're lucky enough to be able to get a good recorder teacher, that's really, really nice. But many people are not lucky enough to have private recorder lessons when they're a child or a teenager or anything. So I think the most important thing is just to have it be a positive experience. You want them to want to play more. You want to play music that's appealing to them. You know, probably don't play like medieval music with teenagers, because they're not going to find it fun, which is, you know, I didn't find it fun for a long time. So don't play music like that, because the whole point of that is to make music a positive thing, and you just want to make them better musicians, and then later you can worry about all the other stuff. But for now, it's just making music positive and encouraging them to keep going, and giving nice words about the recorder, and and not kind of letting people speak badly about it, I think is the most important thing you can do to be a good, like represent well, and kind of so that they can copy in the footsteps later.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think the aspect of the teacher really plays a great role when it comes to the perception of the instrument and how people out there are going to see it. Because if you take a bunch of kids in a classroom and you give all of them recorders and everybody's playing, you know, the sound is not really pleasant. So I think there have to be structured learning as well for students. I think you made mention of using good methods for the young children. And because personally for me, when I was in elementary school, I really hated music. But when I was in secondary school as well, I hated music, and I hated the recorder because of the teacher who taught the subject. So it's very ironic that today I'm a graduate of music, but back then,
And
back then it wasn't even funny at all.
yeah. No, it was the same for me. I mean, I had everybody telling me that I should go to a different instrument, and then I really tried to go to many different instruments, and I tried out lots of options for what I can play instead. And then it was only luckily because I was confident enough to admit that this was the instrument that I enjoyed the most, that it could work out. But I also had everyone telling me to do something else.
All right, so what you just said brings us to the last part of this discussion, and I want you to spend a little more time here talking about establishing yourself as a professional recorder player, because you tried out other instruments, other professional instruments, and you still fell back to the recorder. But you know, and I know that the recorder has a stigma, the recorder has, or rather recorder players and the recorder itself have a stigma that follows them. And people think that the recorder is not a real instrument, it's not a professional instrument. While we are trying to combat that by the side, how can you establish yourself as a professional recorder player?
Sure. So I think my main feeling when it comes to how you should approach being a professional player is not to view yourself just as a recorder player, and not go in with this mindset all the time or feeling like you really need to prove yourself or something like this, but actually to go in acting exactly the way that a musician should act. So that's being nice to people, being very open, being very curious. This is really, I think, the best thing you can do as a musician is to be interested. As soon as you're interested in something, you're going to learn about it, and then you're going to get better as a result. If you're playing music that doesn't interest you, don't play it, because it's like, you know, maybe sometimes you have to do one concert and then you need to play that music which is a bit boring, but in general, find something which is exciting to you and go into it. And that's, you know, if you're interested in it, you're going to get 10 times better at it than playing something that you're not interested in. So be open and meet new musicians, and not only recorder players, definitely not only recorder players, actually, especially players of other music and players of other styles who are going to teach you about what it is to be a musician in general. I feel very strongly that the best thing you can do for yourself is to become a better musician. And then as a result, the recorder will come with it, you know? But don't spend all your life just learning how to play the recorder, because that's just not going to be important later. You know, you can get to a certain point of kind of skill level, and then you're kind of fine for like a lot of the areas you want to work in. But what you might be lacking is, for example, good harmony knowledge, or being able to improvise, or being able to like ornament as well in early music, you know, all this stuff that requires a good ear and this stuff. So I think this is the most important thing. And what that also means is that if you have a good ear, you will be able to go in and stand up against other instruments. So violins and cellos and pianos and whatever. And quite often, actually, probably you're going to have a much better ear than them, because those are often people who have just spent ages learning how to play their instruments really, really well, but don't necessarily have the musicality that we are also kind of lucky to have quite already as recorder players, because we have to do this transposition by sight, and we're often really good at sight reading and ornamentation and this stuff. So we really should make more of the fact that we're able to have these really cool skills kind of established in our fundamental technique. And this is also something that I really notice more and more that players of other instruments don't have, and we can really show it off, because this is exactly what we need to do to get where we want to be as well, is to show off a bit. And that's okay. And that's, you know, it's like when people talk about ego in music, it's also an important thing, because you have to make yourself successful, right? So you have to believe in yourself in some way. But I think my honest belief is that, and also what I try to do when I share on Instagram or I share on anything, is just show people what we can do. You know, play stuff that's impressive. And sometimes it's a bit stupid what I play, and it's just kind of showing off. But actually, it's exactly those kinds of videos where you play well, and then people on other instruments say, like, wow, I didn't know the recorder can sound like that. And then suddenly they change their perception. And I just think if we can kind of flood the internet with videos of recorder players playing really well, it's exactly what we need
Yeah.
for musicians to see it, because also, you know, the Instagram algorithm does all this stuff to get our videos where they need to be. So we post these
Yeah.
videos, other musicians are seeing them, non-musicians are seeing them, and suddenly people believe it. So I think just playing really well, and playing really well, becoming a better musician, being open, being curious, being nice. These are all the most fundamental things that you need to do to be a successful recorder player, or any musician, but especially a recorder player, because we need to fight a bit for our instrument as well.
Okay, so thank you very much. What really struck me from what you said so far is that you are first of all a musician before a recorder player. So you have to work on your musicianship, work on your personality, because personality really affects how you create music. It affects your creativity. So you're working on your personality to open up your creativity, and the recorder is just a tool in our hands to show other
Exactly.
people our creativity. So while we're trying to let others know that yes, the recorder is not a toy, the recorder is a professional instrument, we also have to work on ourselves to show the world that I can be a good musician with this instrument. It doesn't have to be just the bass guitar or sorry, it doesn't have to be just the bass guitar or the piano or the violin. I can be a good musician with the recorder as well. So thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. So there's one last thing I want to chip in before we finish. It's still from your article. Maybe is there ways we can get that articles? Maybe people could read it, because I've made mention of it several times.
I should really share it, actually, and I will maybe send it to you after, or send the important bits to you after, and then you can share it wherever, because I'm super happy for people to read it. I'm just lazy to
I really want people to read it. All right, thank you. Okay, so back to what I was saying. From the article, there was mention was made of a high skill level for recorder players. A high skill level, like talking about trying to raise the bar for the instrument, trying to raise the reputation of the instrument. So what do you have to say about skill level? What do you have to say about skill level?
Yeah, so it's an interesting topic, because the recorder is, and I'm not even trying to be judgmental or saying anything about my own playing, but the recorder is definitely an instrument that has a hugely varied skill level across everyone. So you have everything from children who are learning it from the first time, who obviously make the instrument sound not very nice, and then you have these, you know, top soloists in the world who are doing really, really amazing things. And I think it's really okay. It's okay. And I also had to kind of accept this myself, but it's really okay that there are people who don't play it as well. That shouldn't matter. We should still be able to, for the people who are playing it better, we should still be able to kind of fight for it and everything. I think my best advice, and what I try to share to my students and to other people, for example, who colleagues who I studied with, or even who I work with, to understand the best way to get better at the recorder. I think it's really personal to everyone, honestly. In my case, I found a huge amount of benefit from doing technical practice. So that was from really doing scales and understanding the notes in those scales, and also intervals, really understanding, being able to hear and sing and play every interval. So, minor six and major sevenths and all this stuff, which it's not easy. So you need to, it's one of the skills that you kind of need to consciously develop. What I would also say was hugely beneficial for me was sight reading. And I think this is one of the best things you can do. And it's something I did throughout my childhood. I mean, I just sight read every single day. Like, I didn't practice, I just sight read. I mean, really did not practice. And I still managed to get quite good at quite a young age. And I really genuinely put it down to the fact that I could read really easily by the time I was, I don't know, 16, because all of the years before that, I just spent reading music, and it just meant that I was much more fluent from the beginning. And then later, when I was studying or whatever, I didn't anymore need to think about reading the notes, because that just happened. Then I could focus on the extra bits, which was the musicality and the phrasing and the ornamentation and all that stuff, which is important. So I really cannot recommend enough just the practice of sight reading and practicing in weird keys, and also transposing, trying to, even just putting something down an octave in the beginning, and then later on you can work out some some crazier transpositions. But all exercises like this, I believe, make you a really technically good recorder player. And then for me, you can learn a huge amount of chords from playing repertoire and playing in different styles. So, you know, one week you can choose to play French Baroque, and then another week you can choose to play only Telemann or only Corelli or something, and just choosing this and really going into styles. And I believe in kind of smaller exercises like this, it can be such a good way to learn really fast, actually, as well. And you don't need to spend 6 months playing one piece to get it perfect. To me, that's just not necessary. You know, you're kind of stuck in one skill level at that point, and it's better to kind of, and maybe it's also to me, because I'm not someone who can just do one thing for a very long time, because I get bored really easily. So what I need to do instead is that I need to create different exercises and kind of learn things very quickly and then put them away for a while, and maybe I don't do it perfectly, but that's okay. That will happen later. And to me, this kind of breadth of understanding into different styles and using different exercises, and also not only taking kind of early music exercises, or not just trills and specific ornaments or something, but also stealing exercises from other genres. So using kind of jazz technique exercises, or kind of taking folk tunes and seeing what I can do with them. All of these as a whole make me a significantly better player and a better musician. And this is exactly what we need, I think, for recorder players to be able to establish themselves really well, is just to be able to kind of go into lots of different settings and still be comfortable. And this is exactly the point when people start to believe that we can also be legit and we can be successful. So I think that's probably my best advice for recorder players who want to up their skill.
Wow. Thank you very much, Olivia. Thank you very, very, very much. Really appreciate your time and all the wisdom you've given to us today. So I really want to end this session with you playing something for us. We talked about skill level, we talked about musicianship, we talked about everything. So please play something for us.
Okay, I will play something. Okay, I genuinely did not know you were going to ask me to do this. So maybe I will just improvise a little something, because this is exactly what I'm talking about.
All right.
It's better to play something. Okay. Ta-da!
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So guys, in case you're not already following Olivia, please follow Olivia. I'm still going to upload this video, and I'll make you a collaborator on the video. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for sharing your resources with us. We really appreciate you. And we are very hopeful that 2025, you're going to have more sessions together. So do enjoy your holidays, and a Happy New Year to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.